He is hailed as one of the most potent Grey Knight psychers that has arisen to power. He has contributed in legendary campaigns to drive countless named demons back into the shadow of the warp. And true to legendary Space Marine form, his deeds are too numerous to list. He is Aldrik Voldus, the Grand Master of the Grey Knights chapter.
Brothers and sisters of chapter, this is Sprues and Studs, and it is always a good thing to find ourselves back on the Moon Titan so that we can take an in-depth look at some of its denizens. And the denizen that we're going to be taking a look at specifically today is, well, you already know it's in the title, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Grand Master Aldrik Voldus and see what he has to offer up. So without further hesitation, let's get to the review.
Aldrik Voldus. Ah, yes. Grand Master Aldrik Voldus in front of our face. And we get to feast our eyes on this brilliant psyker over here. So, as usual, let's see what this guy is all about. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the quality of the Grey Knights Aegis Pattern Terminator armor. So, as I said before, probably like 6 or maybe even 8 months back, right when the Grey Knights were released, I believe that these guys are seriously the best that JoyToy has to offer in terms of build quality. And I believe that just by looking at Voldus casually like this, that we have not departed from that. I still love the Grey Knights the most out of every single one of the action figure lines. Yes, it does actually surpass the Blood Angels in my opinion, but I'm just trying to be fair here. So anyways, let's just take a look at our Grand Master in front. So starting from the top down, we have a very large Grey Knight icon up here, and there is a lot to take in. You can see there's a bunch of shading that's going on with this halo up here. What's really cool about this particular piece of armor is that wings can literally spread their wings and fly. So I really like how this psychic hook looks. So if you want to flip around back, you get to see all the power nodes that are feeding into the psyker's mind over here. And then if you flip around, you get to see Voldus himself. And his eyes are actually nicely printed. You can see a very determined look on his face as he is going to smite demons of the warp. So you can see all these different cybernetic wires that help amplify his psyker powers. And what I really like about Voldus the most is actually the beard. The beard's really cool in that it, again, has a bunch of shading here, so it really makes him look very grizzled. And he has a very veteran-type kind of look, as he should, as this guy is the Grand Master. And then rounding out the psychic hood area, there's a Faith Victor sign, and as you can see over here, there is extensive shading and detail going on. So you've got the shading in between the letters. And then we have a very, very detailed pauldron, as we come to expect from the Grey Knights. And here you have a nicely screened Grey Knight symbol with the skull, with a purity seal. And then let's take a look on the other side. More Grey Knight symbols with the characteristic sword stabbed into the spine of the book. So now, moving on to the center of this badass action figure. So here you get Voldus's nameplate, and then there is a dagger stabbed through a skull. And then on Voldus's left-hand side, you have a gigantic heraldic shield with a sun and a skull in the middle. And this heraldic shield, once again, has plenty of shading that's going on with it. So one thing I will point out to you right now is that the Grey Knights Aegis Pattern Terminator armor has a really cool blue underglow to it. So it has the main color of this silver and a secondary glow of like this blue, as you can see. So that's one thing I really appreciate about this armor, that JoyToy has put a lot of effort into it. Let's just take a look at this wrist-mounted Stormbolter. So once again, if you had followed along with the rest of the Grey Knight stuff months back, this Stormbolter is something that we have seen before, which is a good thing, in fact. So it is clearly wrist mounted. It's not like Crow's where you can actually twirl this thing around. And the Stormbolter actually does have the same characteristic Grey Knight Terminator armor glow right here. There's a bunch of highlights that's going on with the casing of the Stormbolter. And now we'll take a look at Voldus's waist area, which is heavily adorned with iconography all over the place. So starting with the front, you have a shaded gold skull region, an amulet that's dangling down here. What I like about the amulet is there is shading in the recesses of the chain, 2 purity seals on each side, more Grey Knight iconography on here, and over here we have a librarian tome that is hanging down from Voldus's belt. And as you can see, the tome is highly detailed here with the shading in between the pages of the books, and you have your characteristic Imperial double Aquila here. What makes Voldus special is that around his chest lies a very, very gigantic tome. A tome that we have not seen before, a tome that has even more detail than the smaller tome. So this is made of a soft plastic material slung around his shoulder, and we get to see the same characteristic heavy shading in between the pages of this book. Also slung around Voldus's shoulder is a very large cape. As you can see, this cape over here is of your characteristic light bone color, and the true color of the cape on the inside is of a red, and it's got white embroidering all around. And that is the case for this part over here as well. So you've got really nicely printed embroidery down here. So we're going to take a look at Voldus's lower area, and there is, once again, lots and lots of to take in with the shin area. You get to see Glory, Honor, Imperator on his right side, and then on his left side, a gigantic Grey Knight symbol with wings on it, and it's got a halo with Glory under here. So another thing that I'm going to quickly point out is it's nice that the pauldrons over here, as you can see, follows the version 2 pattern that we have seen in the Blood Angels. It's relieving to see that the soft plastic area right here is attached onto the rotating part of the arm, mainly because you have mobility with this thing. Unlike the Ultramarines Terminator Chaplain, which unfortunately looks fantastic but is useless as an action figure. And we are going to take an in-depth look at the MALLEUS ARGYRUM, which is the fancy force hammer that he uses to bash the skulls of demons in. So up top of this very badass looking hammer, you've got winged skulls over here, lots of shading, and on the other side it should be the same. Yes, it is the same. You've got the Grey Knight symbol over here to make a nice branding on the demons as Voldus is bashing skulls in. And then progressing down the head of the hammer, we have 2 purity seals, a lot of weathering and a lot of highlight going on with the body of the hammer. And then down here with the shaft of the hammer, I really like how this actually turned out in terms of the shading down here. It looks really nice and it looks very precise. Yes, there are some misses right here, but overall, this does look very good and looks like a very, very imposing force hammer. So that is the very, very in-depth look at Voldus. So now let me close this chapter of this very nice book.
And so we have the mighty Aldrik Voldus completely reviewed. And let me know what you think of this beautiful action figure in the comments section, brothers and sisters of the chapter. So I'll lend you my thoughts in a few cents on what I thought about this guy. So, as I said before, the Grey Knight Terminator line remains still the best in my opinion, followed by probably the Black Templars as well as the Space Wolves. And this particular action figure here is no departure from the high standards that we have come to expect from JoyToy. You've got a lot of things such as the brilliantly colored Grey Knight armor. You've got the fantastic looking force hammer over here, which is very imposing. And then another thing that I do like about him is obviously the unique sculpt on his face. You're obviously not going to see this face anymore just because it is unique to Voldus. and I really like how he has a very grizzled look on his face, and it has a very determined, steely stare. And also, just looking at all the adornments on this action figure, there's a ton of them. I really like the 2 tomes that are hanging around the back of this action figure. So if you already own the Grey Knights line, then this is going to be a no-brainer for you. I would suggest you get this action figure right now. But do I recommend you to get this as your first Grey Knight action figure? I would have to say no. I would still go for the standard bearer, the Ancient, more, and then probably followed by Voldus, just because I just love unique characters like everybody else does. So that is my 2 cents on this action figure. So once again, this is Sprues and Studs. If you enjoy these in-depth looks into these JoyToy action figures, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, because that's what I'm all about, and this is what this channel is all about. And for the supporters of the chapter, once again, I thank you so much for tuning in every single week into my reviews. It does bring a lot of warmth into my heart that people do appreciate what I show you guys, so that you can make an informed decision on whether you want to buy these action figures or not, as we all know that these do not come very cheap. And with that being said, there are going to be very, very many more unique legendary characters that we're going to be reviewing coming up, especially in the month of September. So look forward to that coming up. And with that being said, I will see you all in the next one.